Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on public speaking etiquette. What do speakers do wrong? During October, I was lucky enough to attend and be part of 4 conferences, 4 seminars. There was a couple in Perth, one in Adelaide and one in Brisbane. So I was part of a one-day program at Edith Cowan University in Perth, part of a 3-day program in Adelaide, and also part of a program in Perth and in Brisbane. And I observed some things that made me feel that the speakers weren't that professional, but also I know caused some grief to the organiser and the MC and the conference planners. So I thought I'd put these tips together to help you just avoid some of the common mistakes. And when you're invited to speak or present or you're part of a panel, there's certain etiquettes that we should all observe. So while I don't like to focus on negatives, I want to turn these into positives, but these are the things that I observed and I just wrote them down, and people shouldn't do this. If you haven't been on a webinar with me before, please ask questions as you go. Just type in the dialogue box at any time. I will periodically pause and just check in with you as well. Take notes, participate, and think and apply to your own personal circumstances. Do you have a program or a conference coming up where you're speaking or you're part of the organising committee? Or can you reflect back like I did and you were part of some of these mistakes, some of these things that would have caused a bit of grief for the organisers and maybe would have lost you some points with the audience? So it's about taking some of the knowledge, 1 or 2 things, and applying to your own personal circumstances. I'm going to move on fairly quickly, so do ask questions. I also do recording, so if there's something that I've covered too quickly and you want to review, feel free to email me questions after, or you can ask for the recording of the webinar. So I'm going to talk about the speakers that arrive late, or just 5 minutes. So they're technically not late, they're 5 minutes before their presentation. Those that don't use a microphone, they choose not to. There's one provided, but they decide that they don't need one. The absolute no-no, in my view, going over time. Allowing technology glitches, PowerPoint fails, video doesn't load properly, internet's not working, to kind of take over your presentation. The next one, not giving the audience something for them. So what's in it for me? Making the presentation entirely about you without giving me, as an audience member, some takeaways. And death by PowerPoint. And I'm not going to talk about PowerPoint per se, just one thing that I saw 3 or 4 times about PowerPoint, that if they used one simple technique, that would have made their PowerPoint so much more effective. So that's the agenda for today, 30 minutes. Let's get underway and see how we go. Turning up late or 5 minutes before they're due to present, I think this is a no-no, and it's really impolite. I understand you're busy people, and it's not just the turning up late or 5 minutes before. They're then loading the PowerPoint presentation or trying to get organised, trying to get things working. So while they might have been there 5 or 10 minutes early, by the time they get their presentation underway and technology working and trying to get a MacBook Pro running with a data projector that doesn't have the right connection, all of those things look unprofessional. Not speaking to the MC about your introduction properly. So what happens is the MC then doesn't know how to introduce you. Not agreeing with the MC or the chair of how you're going to do your timing. So I like to make contact with the chairperson or the MC of the presentation of the conference 1 or 2 days before. The other person, of course, is the audio-visual guy. He's the person who's going to make your technology run for you. He's going to check the microphones working, going to show you how to use your equipment. Make friends with that person before. I always like to arrive very early and buy them a coffee. So I'll even see who is the guy who's running my AV, what's the MC's name, what sort of coffee do you like, and I'll turn up early. I'll also give the MC some timing cards. I like to know how I'm going in terms of times, and I want the MC to show me the cards. I don't want to use any other signals, or I don't want him to whisper, I've got 5 minutes to go. So all of this is about turning up early, well beforehand, emailing your PowerPoint presentation the day before so that it can already be loaded and ready to go. And if you are bringing it on your own thumb drive, then you've got to be there before the conference starts. Or if you're a after morning tea or after lunch speaker, then you've got to be there right at the beginning of the morning tea. So you've got that 15 to 20 minutes or that 1 hour lunch break to upload your presentation, check out the technology, how are you going to use the microphone, is it a roving microphone? All of that is about your preparation and not turning up 5 minutes late or 5 minutes before the presentation. It's impolite, it's not good etiquette. Not related to the seminars I was speaking about, I went to another, more of a workshop, and it was 9 to 12, so it was a morning workshop. I arrived at 5 to 9. I'm an audience member. The room fills up, and 5 to 9, the presenter walks in, opens up his laptop, and he needs the internet. And about 9:15, this is a 9 a.m. start, 9:15, they finally troubleshoot the internet connection. And the presenter says, right, good, now that I've got that underway, let's get going, as we start 15 minutes late. So this is about being early so that when people walk into the room, your audience walks into the room 5-10 minutes early, you're there to greet them, to introduce yourself, to ask 1 or 2 questions. It's just common etiquette. If you are a speaker, be there early. You should be the first in the room and the last to leave. The second thing that I observed was the speaker not using the microphone. It was provided, and I know it was anchored in the lectern, and they chose to not use the microphone and speak to the room, a big room, assuming that everyone down the back could hear them. As it transpired, the very far table was unable to hear them. They didn't feel empowered or appropriate to speak up and say, hey, can you use the microphone? Generally, when an audience, when a venue or a conference provides you with a microphone, you should use it. Now, if you're like me, I like to use the platform, so I'm not criticizing this person for leaving the lectern, but you need a handheld microphone, or even better, a lapel microphone, so that you can walk around, gesture, leave the lectern and engage the audience. However, if the convention or the conference organizer only provides 1 microphone and it's hardwired in to the lectern, the best you can do is maybe swivel it to the side and you can stand beside the lectern so the microphone still picks up your voice. Don't assume that you cannot use the microphone and walk through the room and people are going to hear you. If there is a microphone, you need to use it. If you speak a lot, and part of your preparation will be to check in on what kind of audio-visual microphone system will there be. And if they say, yes, we will have an amplifier and will have a microphone system, but it's anchored to the lectern, you may have the option of bringing your own Sony wireless lapel pack. You put the battery pack in your pocket and you clip the microphone to your shirt, and the receiver should plug in to their audio-visual system so that their speakers pick up your voice and you bypass their microphone. If there is a microphone, please use it. It's probably there for a purpose, because I can tell you that most conference organisers, if it's a small breakout session with 4 or 5 people or 20 people, they would rather not waste the cost on a microphone if it's not needed. If it's a bigger room with 60, 100 people and there's a microphone there, it is there for a reason. Going over time. To me, this is the biggest no-no, and it's even worse than arriving late or arriving 5 minutes early and trying to set up. People who go over time into the next speaker's time or into the break, you risk losing your audience, you risk getting the organiser, the conference MC offside, you risk losing your credibility, you risk not ever being booked again, not being invited back. So it's really important that you know your timing and you do not go over time. One of the seminars I mentioned in my introduction, so I attended and was part of 4 conferences over October. One person said, wow, I've really gone over time here, and they were at this stage 20 minutes over their 45-minute keynote, 20 minutes into the lunch break. Wow, I know I've really gone over time, but I've just got to show you a 5-minute video, a short 5-minute video. It was kind of diabolical. You could see the whole room shut down. Now, I was the speaker after lunch. It was a 1-hour lunch break, and we ended up having 25 minutes for lunch. Lunch wasn't in the venue, so people had to leave the room and walk across a corridor to another room, have lunch, and then try and be back in time for the after lunch speaker. So please do not go over time. I mentioned with point 1, arriving early, introducing myself to the MC, giving him some cards, a green card that says 10 minutes to go, and then a red card that says 5 minutes to go. I check where he's going to be sitting so that I can glance down regularly and look for those cards. I don't want him waving around, distracting people, putting the card high up in the air. I just want him to hold that on his lap and I can see that. That's how I make sure I don't go over time. It's important you stick to time according to the agenda. So if someone speaks 10 minutes into your time, I've seen people come up and they start their iPhone or their timer to 45 minutes. I've got a 45-minute speech, which then takes them 15 minutes into the next speaker's time. Don't do that. If you think you've got 30 minutes and you put 30 minutes on, but you've started 5 minutes late because you weren't ready or technology glitches occurred, and I'm going to speak about that in a moment, you need to reduce your time. The other thing I've seen people do is they say, okay, I've got 45 minutes on my slot. They speak for 45 minutes and then they say, look, I'm sure I've got 5-10 minutes for questions. And they go into a question and answer session after their time. Please don't do that. If you want Q&A and you've got a 45-minute session, then you need to leave 5 or 10 minutes for Q&A. And generally 5 minutes would be 1 or 2 questions at the most. So if you're thinking it's going to be a very stimulating topic or contentious, or you want to be disruptive, and you know there's going to be lots of questions, then give yourself a minimum of 10 minutes, which means your 45-minute presentation means 5 minutes of introduction, 30 minutes of speaking, and 10 minutes of questions. Don't think you're going to have the introduction from the MC and Q&A and you're going to speak 45 minutes. So please make sure you manage your time. Now, when the speaker went way over time and luckily it was lunch break that was chopped in half, not the next speaker. The chairman of the conference came up to me and said, Peter, can we start 15 minutes late? I'll give you an extra 15 minutes. And I was able to say, look, yeah, let's start 15 minutes late, and I'll reduce my 45-minute time down to 30 minutes. I can deliver my content in 30 minutes. So I was able to bring him back on track. So make sure your PowerPoint slides, your presentation is flexible so you can stretch or shrink. Make up time or speak for longer to help the conference organiser keep on schedule. Are there any questions at this time? So what if you are a keynote speaker and you've planned for 45 minutes and the speaker before you goes 15 minutes and you really need the 45 minutes? I guess what I would do is, as the speaker's going over time, I would then speak, especially if I had a break, so morning tea or afternoon tea and we're coming back late, I would speak to the organiser. Do you want me to deliver the full content and use my full 45 minutes, which will keep you 15 minutes over time? Or do you want me to shorten it down? I can still make it very valuable and bring you back on time. And then I'll let the organiser make the decision as to whether I'm going to speak into my 45 minutes. And I would say something to that effect. As I'm introducing myself, I'd say, look, we're a little bit over time, so I'm going to shorten my content. I'm still going to give you the key take-homes. Here's my email if you have any further questions, or come and see me after the convention or at the end of the day. Generally, we should be able to, deliver our key messages in 30 minutes to 60 minutes, and 45 is a normal keynote slot. So taking 15 minutes off, adding 15 minutes on shouldn't be much of an issue. It's that flexibility. Letting technology glitz take over your presentation. This image is about how I plan my presentation. I go analog. I don't go to PowerPoint or word processor. I use little sticky notes and I plan my presentation. So I think it's important that we can all go analog so that if we have technical glitches, the show goes on regardless. One of the things that I saw was someone arrived 5 minutes before, walked in the room 5 minutes before, handed over their thumb drive. The conference organizer is loading their PowerPoint presentation, checking the microphone, trying to run a video, trying to connect to the internet, and it took 10 minutes. So all of a sudden, we're already 10 minutes into this person's presentation before they've started. So this is another timing thing. They now think they've got 45 minutes. No, they don't. They've used 10 minutes of their time trying to set up, but that's their fault. But this kind of issue dominated their whole presentation. Look, really sorry about that. I don't know what happens. It normally runs smoothly and the whole thing falls over. So when you do have a glitch, you must not let it take over your presentation. At the Adelaide Convention, one of the speakers, their PowerPoint slides was the wrong size. So all the words, and they were bullet points. I'm going to talk about death by PowerPoint later on. So the top line was off screen, the bottom line was off screen, and the first and the last words were off screen. The screen size was the wrong size for the data projector. And they kept referring to this, look, I'm sorry you can't read it, but they really had to move on. The worst technology glitch that I've ever had when presenting, it was on one of the mine sites in Western Australia. The power went off for 2 hours. So there was no lighting, there was no PowerPoint, there was no computers, there was no air conditioning for 2 hours. But because I knew my content, I had flip charts, I opened up the blinds to let natural light in. It was in the morning, so the heat hadn't quite hit, and we were able to go. We kept going for 2 hours, and then the power came back on, and I was able to show some of the videos I wanted to show. I didn't need to go back over my PowerPoints because I'd covered them on flip charts. So don't let technology, please don't let technology take over your presentation. If there's a little glitch or something goes wrong, the show still needs to go on. What if your whole, got a question, what if your whole presentation's on PowerPoint? You still have to go analog. I carry flip charts with me. You can get the really big butcher's paper, which is the cheapest way to go. And I generally request beforehand that I have a flip chart and a stand present, but you can get the 3M sticky sided. They're about A1, so they're not as big as a butcher's paper, but they're pretty big. And I carry them in my bag and I just pull them out and I can put them on the wall. They self-stick, so I don't have to worry about blue tack, and I can write out my presentation as I need to. I can disclose my models as I go. So yeah, don't be 100% reliant on PowerPoint. If you have a video embedded, which I do, then you just have to be able to describe what the video is about and what was the key lesson, the key point in that video. Great question. Don't make the talk all about yourself. You've got to give the audience a take-home message, what's in it for me. The Adelaide Convention was to do with self-help and empowerment, and a few of the speakers spoke about their struggle and their success, and it was the success stories, and it was heartwarming, but there was nothing for me. There was nothing for the people in the room. It was a little bit self-indulgent. And you can maybe do that once or twice, but then people are not going to book you anymore. Really important that you use your stories, your journeys, your struggles to illustrate a point that has a benefit for the people in the room. Those of you who've done the power of your business story know that you need to make a point, tell a story that illustrates the point, highlight the point, then outline the benefit or the value of the point to the people in the room. If you tell a story and it has no point, then you're a stand-up comedian or some other type of entertainer. If you tell a story and you make a point and I don't care about the point, then you've missed your audience. So it's about telling a story, make a point from within the story, illustrate the importance of the point, what's in it for me, to the people in the room. A few years ago, Stuart Diver, the only survivor of the Thredbo landslide, an amazing story, was on the speaking circuit, and he told about his survival and losing his wife, who was beside him and drowned as the water levels rose. Powerful, powerful story, really emotional. He got booked solid for 12 months and then people stopped booking him because the story was about him and he wasn't able to turn it into some actions, into something for the people. And unless you're an entertainer or a stand-up comedian, generally when we speak, we want something to happen. We want to give the audience something that's going to help them in their journey. So please don't just talk about yourself. What's in it for me? The last one. Now, I know you can't see this and I know you can't read it, it's very busy, but I thought I'd show it to you anyhow. Please don't do that. If I can't read it or it's too busy and I can't understand it, don't show it to me. If there's too much detail or the font's so small, please don't show it to me. What's the purpose? And those are the exact words the person said. I know you can't read that, but I thought I'd show it to you anyhow. I know you can't read it, but what I really want to illustrate is what I would suggest is if you do have a complex data, this is your organizational structure, it's too complex to go into, I would make sure that your next slide has the bit that you want to talk about on a full slide and big font so you can read it. So if amongst all of this, this is what you want to talk about, this is the point, this is the data, then there's no need to show all this. I would go straight to the larger slide, the larger bit of data that you want to illustrate. This being PowerPointed is a waste of time. So my suggestion is if you've got something like this that is absolute crucial to your presentation, then provide a handout. So I've got a comment provided here by one of the participants. PowerPoint problem that was locked. So there's a password problem. And it was really my problem. I had to talk through it, and unfortunately it was about a survey. So it had graphic results of the survey. I had a printed copy of the slide, so I had to explain the question in the survey, i.e. why, the background, and the results. Fortunately it worked, but I was nerve-wracking. The PowerPoint was made available to all, and I managed to fill the 20-minute time slot. That's really good. That's plug and play. So yeah, what if your PowerPoint slide freezes, all the power goes out, and you've got enough natural light? People have paid money, they've invested time, you've traveled, the show goes on. The show goes on. Yeah, password protection is really annoying. And sometimes when you go on site and they log in and you put in your USB, and then after a while, if you're not active, it sort of shuts down, and the organisers moved on and no one else in the room has a PowerPoint slide. So places like BHP and Rio often have, networked computers and password controlled. So all those things kind of happen, and it's about anticipating them. And what would you do if this happened? Really good point. So any last questions, please type them in now. We're drawing to an end. As always, I softly promote my upcoming workshops. We have a range of workshops in Perth. This one is next week. Thinking and speaking off the cuff. I've got vacancies for those. I don't think there's any vacancies in that. Assertive communication skills for women. This is one of the best-selling workshops. I don't run this one. My wife runs this. Presentation skills, Brisbane. I don't think we've got any Queenslanders on the webinar today. More workshops in November and December, and yeah, please just pass on our website to anyone you think might find some value in the workshops. Feel free to share that with those people. Next webinars, 2 in December, early December. I don't want to interfere with your Christmas and breaks. How to control nerves and speak confidently. So, the PowerPoint freezing and the password locking up, you can imagine would cause some anxiety. And it's about controlling nerves before and anticipating. 6 habits of successful speakers. I've given some of the faux pas, some of the mistakes, but this is more around etiquette today. So if you flip that, you'll know that good speakers do arrive early. They use a microphone. They don't go over time. They don't do death by PowerPoint. But what are the 6 habits of highly successful speakers? You know how to reach me. You've got my email. I'm assuming you've all signed up for my newsletter. And as a speaker, when you get invited to present, just observe common basic etiquette. They'll make you respected, you'll connect with your audience, and the organizer will want you back. Enjoy your day and go out there and change the world one conversation at a time.